Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this first OCM for 2023. I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to advise members of the public gallery that the meeting is being audio recorded in accordance with council policy. If you are asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. Item 1 is attendances and apologies. We have no apologies for this evening's meeting. Item 2 is public question time. 2.1 is response to previous public questions taken on notice from the ordinary council meeting held on Monday, the 12th of December 2022. Item 2.2 is public questions. Could I please ask Mr. John Kirkpatrick to come forward and read his questions?
Madam President, if Mr. Kirkpatrick's not available, we will respond to his questions in writing and provide him a written response to his questions.
Thank you, CEO. Could I please ask Miss Pauline Holmes from Viper to come forward and read your questions, please?
Madam President. Okay, question 1. Which councillors were involved in a councillor dinner without Shire officers in January?
Ms Holmes, the Shire does not keep records of council interactions outside of those arranged by the Shire.
Okay, question 2. How can the community of Serpentine Jarrahdale have taken the decision making of council, and what are the ramifications of council decisions when councillors involved in a voting block are meeting outside of council without officers?
Thank you for your question, Ms Holmes. At the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale, we are committed to transparency, accountability and ethical conduct in all of our decision-making processes. We believe that community trust is essential in our ability to deliver the best outcomes for our community. That said, I would emphasise that legislation does not prohibit councillors from interacting outside of council or council with or without officers present. In line with the Shire's commitment to ethical conduct, any member of the public that is concerned about the integrity of decision-making of council is encouraged to report their concerns formally to integrity agencies such as the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries and the Crime and Corrupt Commission that oversee the functions of local governments across the state. Thank you. Could I please ask Mr. Bruce Capehorn to please come forward and ask your questions?
Good evening, Madam President. Is it common practice for individuals to have personal access to use of Shire reserves, which remove access to other community and members of the community?
Mr. Capehorn, I will advise that this question will be taken on notice in accordance with Council Policy 1.1.3, public question and public statement time. Ordinary council meeting. A written response will be provided to you.
There's further on this as well, this on notice as well. Is that the answer to that question 1 is yes. What processes are in place for this to happen? And were there any fees or charge received by the Shire for the use of that land?
I'll advise again that this question will be taken on notice in accordance with Council Policy 1.1.3, public question and public statement time, ordinary council meeting. A written response will be provided to you.
The last part of my question is, what is the value of the fee? What is the value of the fees received per year by the Shire for the personal use of the reserve number 19895?
Again, I'll advise that the question will be taken on notice in accordance with Council Policy 1.1.3, public question and public statement time, ordinary council meeting. A written response will be provided to you by the Shire.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could I please ask Miss Leanne Taylor of Oakford to come forward and ask your questions, please?
I'd just like to, can you please advise me what council accepts, why council authority accepts the findings of the acoustic report when only one chainsaw has been used for these purposes, which would ideally be the smallest and quietest one that we have. When in fact Mr. Heslington has many chainsaws varying in volume, power and noise as a mix. This is evidence in the way that very large tree stumps and logs that he has in the property, and his processing outside of the hard sand area, and also 3 metres from our property, the bedroom window, also in scrublands in some.
Thank you for your question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your first question this evening, please.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam President. The acoustic assessment was prepared on a worst case based scenario. The chainsaw with the loudest decibel reading measured 10 metres from the noise source was utilised as part of the assessment. Additionally, background noise from Rowley Road, such as vehicle noise, was also included. The acoustic assessment concluded that activities complied with Environmental Protection Regulations of 1997 for the sensitive receiver to the east of the site. The acoustic assessment also concluded that the processing of wood will have to occur behind a wood berm to ensure noise emissions received at the sensitive receptor to the west is compliant with the noise regulations. In terms of the processing of wood, the acoustic assessment, which has been recommended by officers to form part of the approved plans of development, identifies the area where processing must occur, being approximately 75 metres from the eastern boundary and 65 metres from the western boundary between the operation hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. No processing wood has been proposed to occur on weekends.
Also, if the council, I've noticed in the, the council are proposing that only 30 minutes of chainsaw use per day. Can you please advise what actions will be taken against Mr. Heslington when he exceeds the 30 minutes and how is it police? And who do we call when this happens? Considering that he has never abided by any conditions set by the council thus far, and what the exact make and model of the chainsaw is that he's using.
I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your second question, please.
Thank you for the question, Madam President, through you. Where complaint is received or is alleged that an applicant or landowner is operating outside of an approval, officers will undertake investigations in accordance with council policy, general compliance and enforcement. In terms of the petrol chainsaw used in the acoustic assessment, it has been prepared on the worst case scenario using the chainsaw with the loudest decibel reading measured 10 metres from the noise source. In terms of who to contact, the Shire's rangers or the Shire's compliance officers are the best contact.
And my final question is, as per the development application of the wood, which is stored in the hard sand area, can you please advise Mr. Heslington is now placing it outside of that, which is towards the rear of the property? Why is this allowed?
I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your third question this evening, please.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam President. Compliance matters are investigated in accordance with council policy, general compliance and enforcement. I'm happy to meet with you if you'd like to discuss this matter further.
Can I please ask Mrs. Lee Bond to come forward and ask your questions, please?
That's contractor hired the Watkins Road Transfer Station to attend the mulch. What are his specific duties? How long is his contract for, and what is it costing the ratepayer per year?
I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to respond to your first question this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Bond.
Through you, Madam President. Thank you for the question, Mrs. Bond. The Shire's mulching works is generally undertaken during the days that the waste transfer station is closed to the public. However, on this occasion, the works were undertaken during the opening hours of the waste transfer station due to contractor availability. Ideally, the work should happen outside the opening hours. The cost of mulching works for this financial year to February 2023 is $31,281. The cost for the mulching works during last financial year was $28,776. The contractor was engaged for mulching works through a request for quotation process, and the Shire does not have a long-term contract in place for this type of work. The contractor's duty includes mulching the sorted green waste at the waste transfer station to a nominal 150 millimeter screen size to produce mulch.
Recently, a man sitting in his car in Petersway, Oakford, had a large section of a tree fall on his car. This also caused a fire. He's very lucky not to have been killed. Has any investigation been done into the dangerous trees in Petersway? And if so, what action is being done to make sure these trees are safe? If not, why not?
Thank you for your second question, Mrs. Bond. I'll advise that the question will be taken on notice in accordance with Council Policy 1.1.3, Public Question and Public Statement Time, Ordinary Council Meeting. A written response will be provided to you.
Still the rule that fire breaks must be completed by the 30th of November each year. If so, why is it permissible for government departments not to have their fire breaks in? And we are now in February of the following year.
Thank you for your third question, Mrs. Bond. I'll advise that this question will be taken on notice in accordance with Council Policy 1.1.3, Public Question and Public Statement Time, Ordinary Council Meeting. A written response will be provided to you. Can I please ask Mr. Bill Denham to come forward and ask your questions, please?
Madam President, councillors, regarding Keenan Street, to my understanding, the Shire has been given a substantial parcel of land, approximately $30 million, I think actually probably more, and also $20 million to develop stage 1A. This is a total of a $50 million gift to the SJ community. Basically, it's a free road, free pavilion, 2 free ovals, and the wages are paid for out of this money as well. No ratepayer money has been put towards 1A. Is this correct or not?
Thank you for your first question this evening, Mr. Denham. I'll advise that this question will be taken on notice in accordance with Council Policy 1.1.3, Public Question and Public Statement Time, Ordinary Council Meeting. A written response will be provided to you.
Has or is the council motion to cease purchase orders in any way hindering, stalling or delaying the progress of Keenan Street precinct? If so, what is the specific impact?
I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to respond to your second question this evening. Thank you.
Through you, Madam President. Thank you for the question, Mr. Denham. Since the December 2022 council meeting, detailed design has been progressing as planned. The council resolution has delayed submitting the application for the clearing permit. However, the Shire has received today the signed deed of variation for the $1.5 million, which satisfies the condition applied by council in this regard.
So that clearing permit's up and going now. Application for the clearing permit.
So we've,
Now it's got the 1.5. Wrong. Third question. Can council officers please supply an itemised list of council training that has been paid for by the ratepayers but not completed in the last 6 years, please?
Councillor Denham, was that 6 years or 6 months?
No, 6 years. I've got that written and I dropped it off at the office, got a photocopy of it.
Madam President, we've made an error in interpreting Mr Denham's question. We've interpreted it as 6 months. I'm sorry, Mr Denham.
That's fine.
We'll have to take the question on notice, Madam President, and provide a written response. We've got the answer for 6 months. We didn't know it was 6 years. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr Denham. Could I please ask Mr Colin Galt to come forward and read your questions, please?
President, councillors, this is about the proposed brewery at lot 201 and 1248 Carnot Road. Name is Colin Galt of 1359 Carnot Road. I'd like to ask the following questions regarding the said amendments to the proposal that was sent back to the Shire from Jada. Question 1, water. How does reducing the amount of beer produced lessen the amount of water pulled from the aquifer? Mr Moore stated at a previous meeting that he would increase his water usage by double each year. Water Authority boards will not impact on what is happening to the water table. Previous experience with Alcoa with a property I owned in Meerland saw water levels drop in bores, wells, stokes significantly.
I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your first question this evening, please.
Thank you for the question, Mr Galt. Through you, Madam President. The application has been amended to reduce the overall production of beer to no more than 2 million litres. As a result, reducing the amount of water required to be drawn from the leadable aquifer than previously anticipated. In terms of impacts on bores, wells and soaks, the operator, through Department of Water Environmental Regulation process, is seeking to extract water from the leadable aquifer. The leadable aquifer is deeper than the superficial aquifer where surrounding properties draw water from. The leadable aquifer is confined from the superficial aquifer and drawdown is not considered to impact existing water supplies from the superficial aquifer. This will be a matter for DWER to consider and determine.
Question 2 is regarding traffic. How does the turning lane work if you have 40 to 50 cars travelling in both directions in less than half an hour? With cars and trucks waiting to turn across oncoming traffic. These are the new access driveway, which has now been moved closer to the point, which has been seen fatality before, and not to mention the traffic build-up at this rapid road entry and other black spots.
Thank you for your second question this evening. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your question, please.
Thank you for the question. Through Madam President. The traffic impact assessment prepared by a suitably qualified professional submitted as part of the application demonstrates that a full channelized left turn and an auxiliary right turn into the site will be adequate when considering the traffic generated by the development, existing traffic along Carnot Road, and projected volumes of traffic. Officers, however, have recommended a safer and more effective treatment in filtering the traffic to the correct turning lanes, being a channelized left and right turn into the site to cater for the vehicle movement at the intersection.
Question 3 regarding noise. How does one control the noise from a 1,000-seat restaurant, 341 cars, live band, 1,000 patrons under the influence of alcohol leaving the premises onto a road that's clearly not quite built for traffic? We live some distance from Serpentine Hotel, 1248 Carnot Road. Noise from live bands and so that we had 7 vehicles crash through our front fence and gate in 12 months.
I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your third question this evening, Mr Galt.
Thank you for the question. through you, Madam President. The acoustic assessment submitted has been reviewed by officers and the Department of Water Environment Regulation Noise Branch, which includes noise mitigation and management measures to be implemented within a noise management plan to ensure compliance with Environmental Noise Regulations 1997. The Department of Water Environment Noise Branch have also advised that the noise mitigation and management measures identified in the submitted acoustic assessment are valid. Officers have recommended a condition in line with the conclusions of the submitted acoustic assessment requiring a noise management plan to be submitted to ensure noise must not exceed 83 decibels at the perimeter of the internal space and includes the recommended operational management measures. The noise management plan will be required to be amended and updated in the instance noise complaints have been received.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Public question time has concluded at 7:21 p.m. Item 3 is public statement time. Can I please ask Mr. John Gillibrand to come forward and read your statement, please?
Good evening, Madam President, council members, shire officers and members of the public. My name is John Gillibrand. I thank you for this opportunity to present and voice my objections to the Bright Light Brewing restaurant and brewery proposal at Lot 201 Barnet Road. Although I made a fuller document has been submitted, I would, if I may, like to present a more concise version. Essentially, I do not believe an industrial scale brewery belongs in a zoned rural setting. I acknowledge that developers have made concessions to nearby landowners to attempt to appease their concerns, but I believe there are still major issues that should be the basis to reject this DA. Reviewing the amendments, I would raise doubts and objections to the following. Original car park was stated to have 251 vehicle bays. It now states 324 and 2 coach parking bays. Why is there a significant increase when the expected restaurant capacity has not changed? The revised document states 16,500 cubic metres of overburden will be required to raise some lower proposed reticulated areas to 1.5 metres above the water table. Based on a 6-axle semi, 42.5 tonne GMA that can carry 19 cubic metres, this will require approximately 870 trucks coming and going into that location on what can be a very busy and dangerous section of Barnet Road. Number 4, will the noise control methods and procedures be monitored in actuality and not left as modelling now predicts? Any control response by the on-site manager at the time will be at their discretion to address and act upon any complaints, which I hope will be followed on through. Water extraction and disposal has got to be considered as one of the greatest concerns. The DA has a provisional water licence to take 50,000 kilolitres, that's 50 million litres, from the Leederville aquifer, and states approximately 30,000 litres or 30 million litres will now be required to produce 2 million litres of beer and associated needs. It is stated that the water allocation, if approved, will come from the Serpentine 3 Leederville aquifer, not affect the groundwater table. I do not believe this is true. I have over 35 years experience in subsurface drilling. As there is no impervious membrane between the two, and over time, the drawdown of such amount in one place will affect the surrounding bore owners who rely upon water for stock and land irrigation. The Leederville is charged by seasonal sources from the Darling Range and groundwater above. Over time, there will be consequences. Just look at the issues DWARE are now facing in the Nangara and Jannacott Mounds with bores and drying wetlands. The disposal of wastewater, 30 million litres. The location has got to be considered paramount. It would appear that sorghum crop has been abandoned as a viable and as it is inconsistent with a poor basalt sand, which most of this area is. and the K-Pod mobile sprinklers proposed as an effluent disposal type system, again, are not compatible with sorghum. Very poor research and investigation would appear to have been made in this area. There are many conflicting and contradicting values and statements between the original and revised DA. The original document was over 500 pages, and I can accept some errors, but there are a lot of discrepancies in important figures and shows proofreading of such an important submission has not been done. If this was a DA application for a 2 million, previously 5 million, brewery and cannery facility, I do not believe that even Taylor Borough Barnet would even take on this proposed project for this location. By submitting a restaurant with a brewery, they propose it under the discretionary use category. Being concerned about this DA, I took the time to read through most of the original DA by Taylor Borough Barnet and on behalf of Brighttown Brewing, and suspect those in favour only basically wanted a local drinking venue and have no regard as to where their alcohol was produced. I think it is critical to note not one of the government authorities, Department of Primary Industries, Depot or Noise, to which this DA was passed for assessment, has endorsed or come out in full favour of it at this time, and hold serious reservations to even not supporting it. I do not have the expertise to evaluate all the technical data, but these government departments do and should be recognised as such. In conclusion, Madam President, I respectfully ask you and council members to use good discretionary judgment, compassion in opposing this DA, and support adjoining and surrounding landowners, along with ratepayers like ourselves, who for the last 30 years have all enjoyed a rural lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillibrand. Can I please ask Mr. Gavin Healy to come forward and read his statement this evening?
Councillors and members of the public, thank you for the opportunity to finally respond to my objections of a monopole on the tower. In response to 9.3 at block 116245 Coonan Street, Whitby, given the inconsistencies presented in the lack of consultation with people in the immediate vicinity and inattention to the legislative requirements of the Telecommunications Act, I request that the decision and or the approval of the monopole base station at the above address is revoked until such time as appropriate consultative and suitability of location for the tower meets these expectations. Telecommunications carriers must comply with C564/2020 mobile phone base station deployment code, allow the community and council greater participation, which was never done. Provide greater transparency to the local community and council, which was never done. Telcos must consult you about their plans to install mobile phone base stations, also known as mobile phone towers. The carrier must notify the owners and occupiers premises in the immediate vicinity, and the proposed site was never ever done. The carrier must provide a response to submitters on submissions that was received during the comment period. I received no correspondence at all. SJ policy provisions, location, LPP 4.6 states that this type of development should not be located within 200 metres of land zoned urban. Our property is zoned urban development, and so is the property in question, or urban deferred by the Metropolitan Region Scheme MRS, unless there are special circumstances. This site is within 100 metres of my back door, and there is no rail line or physical buffer between my property and to the south and to the property of the east. The immediate site to the west is Robinson Road Reserve, not Railroad Reserve. There is no structure plan in place at this stage. These provisions are put in place to safeguard not only humans, but animals that live here for 24/7. Attachment 4. What is attachment 4? The only attachment that was ever mailed to us for public opinion was attachment 1, which included the original proposed site of 53 metres from Keenan Street, Telstra's preferred site, and they have since advised they would know at no cost the work already done. Vision Street, I spoke to a technician supervisor back in May 2022. exploring new locations at attachment 1 was refused by the Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire. No consultation at all with the residents of Lot 124 Island Avenue, Whitby, or any other neighbours whose properties are directly affected by this infrastructure. We did not even know about this telecommunication tower and associated infrastructure. I, the landowner of the address noted in item 1, came to the Shire office in May 22 and asked for information on the location and the change of the location. The Shire officer advised that I would be notified by mail and given the opportunity to have my say when they decide. No response. I approached the applicant's neighbour of Lot 117, 223 King Street, who previously worked at the SJ Shire, and they had told me that they had already knew about this infrastructure and had sold their house off market because of the inside information. No prior communication with us or any other neighbours. They both had serious health issues. Received a letter dated 8th of August at Lot 124 Island Avenue. A development application for telecommunications monopole associated infrastructure. This was the first and only notification we had received from the Shire, and this letter also contained feedback submission form and attachment 1 only on the map 53 metres from Keenan Street. Ordinary council meeting on 21st of November 2022. Information received by us 53 metres from Keenan Street in front of the demountable buildings at the west and at the west side of the applicant's house. We had no knowledge of the Shire President Michelle putting forward a motion to change the location. Surely landowners affected by this decision should have been consulted, as you would have known that this was going to happen prior to the council meeting. Tuesday, 31st January 23rd, earlier at AM, a technician surveyor was at the site located taking soil samples, and this was the first the landowners of Lot 124 at Island Avenue, Whitby, knew there was a change of location. Due to the no direct correspondence from the ordinary council meeting held 21st November 2020. I tried 3 times to have a meeting with the CEO to find out what was going on, but to no avail. This was not his fault. And this is why I took my concerns to councillors. In summary, I don't believe the original location on the attachment 1 was ever going to be approved as to the proximity of the applicant's house and the demountable buildings where they run a computer business from. And that is what this is all about. There is plenty of open space in this area with minimum risk for all ratepayers to benefit from this infrastructure, as stated in my submissions, which I doubt no one read. Gavin here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. Can I please ask Ms. Leanne Taylor to come forward and read your statement this evening, please?
7 years ago, my husband and I purchased 5 acres. To get our children the country life that we both were a privilege of. For approximately 5.5 years, we have loved watching our kids grow up, riding horses, riding motorbikes, swimming in our pool, and just love having a beautiful landscape to grow up in. Sadly, this came to an abrupt end when Mr. Heslington started his lease at 846 Rowley Road, and from 8 AM to 11 PM worked on that property to get it ready to run a business. His activities were dumping 14 semi-load trailers of wood, bringing in beehives, although empty, I think. And having a homeless person living in the derelict shed with no toilet facility, which he was also using drills, angle grinders, most nights until 11:30 PM. This was reported to council. Without any development applications submitted to the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. But with my actions of reporting his non-conformance to the Shire came with a consequence of Mr. Heslington targeting us, because how dare I report him? He was filming me and my children when we were leaving and arriving at my home, and to the point of raising chainsaws above his head and in a forward motion in my direction, and encouraging employees to do the same while laughing. This has affected my kids, as I don't want to leave the house, as I do not know what he'll do next. Even to the point where I've asked Mr. Heslington only just this Saturday to please ask the boy who was riding a 4-wheeler motorbike to not drive down the fence line as the dust billowed through our pool fence, which I've sent the video evidence of that. It's his response, it's my driveway, I can do what I want. And then that's later that afternoon, I was down the side of my house and my head was above the fence line. The woman on his property called me. My son is allergic to bees to the point if he gets stung, it's life-threatening. I've also forwarded the letter to the Serpentine Jarrahdale as well, which is, I think, in the agenda today. I've advised the council in my reply to the initial development application, which was completely disregarded. Upon speaking to the health team late last year, they advised me that they would not approve bees given my son's condition. I hope this is correct, as my son's lifestyle of riding motorbikes and swimming in our pool and enjoying being a kid in a rural property will no be longer when he is petrified that he's going to get stung and potentially die. He's had many portable toilets, chemical, at the front of his property, and these were reported to the Shire. He was advised to remove, which he did, and if he wanted a toilet facility, he needs to install a correct septic system. There is yet again another portable toilet, which is now hidden down the back of the property, which I have reported to the health team. Mr. Heslington has been advised by the council that he is not allowed to use chainsaws on the property, and this was a condition of his development, and has received a direction notice for his non-conformance, yet he has never stopped using chainsaws. My initial question to the council in his response to his initial development application was, why does he have the need to use chainsaws when he has advised all his timber is pre-cut when it's delivered? It seems to me that considering the tree stumps, large logs, tree roots and timber branch offcuts, his business model has changed, yet without any new development application. His radio in the shed that goes all night and is loud enough that my dogs bark all night thinking that there is someone on our property. So they now need to be inside all night and waking up if they need to go to the toilet. I contacted Sarah Muir, which is the property manager for that property. They contacted Mr. Heslington. To his response, they can complain all they like. There's been increased activity recently of juvenile brown snakes. Emailed that photo through today. We found 2 within a week. And yes, while I understand that this can form part of living in a rural lifestyle, however, our property is cleared and we've never experienced any snake activity in the 7 years that until this summer. Surely it's no coincidence that 846 Raleigh Road has no fire breaks down either side of the property. And there's also no 10,000 litre water tank, which is also part of the approved conditions. But yet he's still bringing in wood to the property. Currently there is 15 to 20 loads of wood on the property, and 20% of that load is actually not even in the hard stand area, which is part of that condition. To save the lives and, more importantly, my children's well-being and the enjoyment of our property has felt the impact these past 18 months. Is an understatement. No condition that the Shire has set, Mr. Heslington is adhered to. So why is it being considered to do the right thing for him when he can't even follow conditions set by the Shire? I hope that you can see the impact this person has had on our peaceful enjoyment of our property, as surely that is the right we have. Further to this, I've advised Ashlyn and Andrew, when I had a meeting with them in December, that I'll be more than happy to be a reference or present an impact statement to SAT to help your case, you could say, and give my own personal opinion on how he's conducting himself and what he's not doing it should be. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement this evening. Can I please ask Mrs. Lebon to come forward and read your statement this evening?
The Watkins Road transfer station commenced mulching green lane, 100% beautiful mulch until recently. Not only were we subjected to a black dust storm, the contractor behaved in a very dangerous manner with the machine was operating. Is the Shire prepared for a lawsuit should this cowboy turn the machine over on himself and be injured or killed? And that was close to happening while we were there. There needs to be more supervision when people are bringing in their green waste, asbestos, car parts, plastic, articulation, dozens of large stones, in all loads recently. Not what I want in my mulch. I also expect the quality of mulch to return to its former quality. Black dust is not mulch. How sure are you that only ratepayers of the Shire are depositing their waste at this site? I understand the attendants do get to know the regulars, but there appears to be no checks. It's time ratepayers are treated more fairly when they don't have access to cars, travellers, etc. They pay their rates and they deserve better consideration. And I want to thank the councillors who gave me credit for being a puppeteer. I assure you, it's the only damn puppet I played.
Thank you for your statement, Mrs. Bond. Could I please ask Mr. Bill Denham to come forward and read your statement this evening?
As you're aware, the Minister for Local Government wrote to the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale on the 20th of September 2022 following an initial review by the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries and advised that the following reforms would be introduced in time for the 2023 ordinary local government election. The introduction of optimal preferential voting, directly elected mayors and presidents to ban 1 and 2 local governments, councillor numbers based on population. Practical impact for the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale is the direct election of the Shire President and the reduction of 1 council member to account for the President being directly elected. The Warden representation review undertaken by Council is fundamentally flawed, with several options put forward by Council being unachievable due to the Council not conducting a review of the current ward boundaries. The timeframe provided for the community consultation was the absolute minimum permitted under the Local Government Act. It ran over the end of the school activities and the lead up to Christmas, with consultation closing on the 23rd of December. The engagement undertaken with the community was non-existent and not consistent with Council Policy 5.3.4 community engagement. Of the 24 submissions received by the Shire, representing 0.1% of the Shire's population, 18 of those 24 submissions were unverified, meaning there's no way of knowing if the submitter was an elector of the Shire, if they were 18 different people, or even the same person. The Minister for Local Government has stated that council numbers would be based on population. Councillors have supported a substantial reduction of council members, have constantly maintained a narrative to the community around a ratio of 6 councillors representing the community at a ratio of 1 to 3,550. This narrative is actually misleading and incorrect. The current estimated residential population of the Shire is 36,403. Population of the Shire has increased by 2,200 people since 2020. The Shire is the fastest growing by percentage in WA and the 6th fastest in Australia. Total council of 9 would yield a representation ratio of 1 to 4,400. The narrative ratio of 1 to 3,550 does not provide representation to the 15,103 people, or 41% of the Shire population. The only fair way forward is to maintain a directly elected president with 8 councillors. If the Local Government Advisory Board supports the submission from the Shire, there will be no election in the North Ward for the 2023 ordinary local government election. This is in direct conflict with the Local Government Act and does not give the community its democratic right to elect their councillors. The only fair way forward is a full spill of all positions at the 2023 ordinary local government elections. This council should actually be ashamed and hang its head in disgrace for its decision-making based on incorrect, flawed information and the fact that they have not read the information supplied by the officers. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement this evening.
Could I possibly ask a question of Mr. Denham?
There is no questions from councillors at this stage. Councillor Duggan.
We have asked questions previously of those who have put forward statements and deputations.
There is questions can be asked of deputations. We have not asked questions of statement givers.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Item number 4 is petitions and deputations. We have a deputation from Miss Jessie Dunbar from Taylor Burrell Barnet, Mr. Matthew Moore and Mr. Brian Hinkie from Bright Bright Tank Brewing regarding item 10.1.1, proposed use not listed brewery, restaurant and associated works, consideration of additional information following deferral by Development Assessment Panel, lot 2011248 Carnut Road, Serpentine.
Thank you, Madam President and councillors on this evening. I'm Jessie Dunbar from Taylor Barwell Barnett, the applicant for item 10.1.1. And I'm here with Matthew Moore from Bright Tank Brewing, Brian Henke's in the gallery, the Bright Tank development proponent and landowner of 48 Road in Serpentine. I'm sure you're all well aware of this proposal by now. It's our third time here, so I won't go back over old ground. We're here this evening with a modified proposal for the proposed restaurant and brewery at the property, which we strongly believe has addressed all of the key concerns raised to date by council, the JDAP and the community, while still achieving a high quality, environmentally sustainable and family friendly venue, which we're certain will become a valued community meeting place in the future. Recognising the need to deliver more local recreational and tourism facilities in Serpentine, Bright Tank is genuinely committed to establishing this venue to cater to local demand, celebrating the uniqueness of the produce from the Peel Food Zone, providing local employment and training opportunities, partnering with local independent agribusiness and producers, as well as assisting in local tourism growth. In response to concerns raised previously, we've worked to adjust the proposal to reduce its overall size and scale, both physically and in terms of beer production. We've reduced the impact on neighbouring properties to the extent possible, and we've ensured the development is able to operate in such a way that it protects the environmental features of the site and the local area. It is important to appreciate that development approval for this proposal is just the first step in the process. Once this is achieved, detailed design for the more specific elements of the proposal can progress, which will be necessary to obtain various subsequent approvals, which are required under separate legislation, in particular the Environmental Protection Act. Without these subsequent approvals, the development can't go ahead as proposed, and these separate approvals provide certainty that all of the relevant environmental aspects of the proposal are adequately addressed and supported by the relevant agencies. However, in addressing Council's previous concern relating to the proposal's ability to meet the Peel Harvey EPP at the 5-year production target, the significant reduction in the brewery output of 60% results in a substantial reduction in wastewater generated by the brewery. The updated NIMP submitted to Council demonstrates that the development is capable of operating well within the Peel Harvey EPP nutrient target rates based on the reduced brewery output. Given this particular matter has been an ongoing issue of the proposal, Bright Tank has sought legal advice as to the application of the EPP. The advice provided by Lavin to Bright Tank and the Shire's officers indicates that the referral advice provided by the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation with respect to the application of the EPP is misconceived. The legally correct position is that the EPP does not actually impose any nutrient loading targets on individual properties or proposals. Rather, the EPP quite clearly sets out catchment-wide targets on the understanding that meeting those targets is a task of regional significance and is to be achieved primarily through higher order planning decisions, rather than by directly regulating individual proposals. We consider this important for Council to understand when making its decision on the recommendations for JDAP. Notwithstanding this advice, it is still the intention of Bright Tank to establish a venue which respects and operates in harmony with the local environment, incorporating a range of innovative sustainability measures to become a benchmark for breweries not only in the locality but the state more broadly. We're confident that the revised proposal put forward for your consideration represents a thorough and well-considered design, which is sympathetic to the rural aesthetic of the local area, which enhances and takes advantage of the existing vegetation within the site, and most importantly, operates appropriately to ensure the natural environment is not jeopardised. And we hope Council is in a position to support the proposal and offer some recommendations for JDAP. I'll hand over to Maddie to say a few words.
Evening, everybody. Just like to thank the members of the public that come up and spoke. It's never an easy thing. I can tell you I do it a lot myself, and whether it's whether you're for or against what we're trying to achieve, it's still a courageous thing to come up and speak in front of anybody. And I'd just like to thank the members of the public and the council in that respect for allowing us the time over the last year to come to you with this proposal as well. Advice has been taken on board, and we are genuinely care and want to be a part of the Serpentine community. So I'm a local. I've said it a few times. I have a house in Byford and we have the property in Serpentine, and I do care greatly about what happens here. Yes, essentially I'd like to thank the planning team as well, who have been very supportive so far in their advice, and we do hope for a easy decision as we move forward. And as Jesse's already stated, the primary goal of a development application is to allow us to move to the next step, where those regulators have the finite say on whether we actually can achieve our goals or not. So the comments written in the RAR are only a first glance at Dewe's opportunity to read a report. It takes Dewe alone over 12 weeks to assess a nutrient loading plan. And that, from that legal advice we seek, that's what the water quality note for Dewe that we originally built our nutrient loading plan was off. So everyone could just have a bit of a think about that, because the reality is the development, as Jess has said, is the first step to us moving forward, and we still have to achieve the goals that the legislators put in place for us as a business and intend to do so, right down to the installation of monitoring bores on the property, which has been done in good faith, to move forward with this project so that we could essentially measure not only the water quality but the water depth and the water table. To answer, there seemed to be a wrong car park. The car park size has not changed. It has been re-landscaped to fit more into the aesthetic of the area, and then with an attempt to move the brewery and the car park to allow less vision for the neighbours behind on Rapids Road. Yeah, anyway, I'd just like to thank everyone for allowing us to put the proposal together. Your planning department's been absolutely amazing, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Item 5 on tonight's agenda is the President's report. Good evening and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting for February 2023. It has been a busy start to the year with our Australia Day Citizen of the Year Awards and citizenship ceremony held on Thursday, the 26th of January. Congratulations again to the following people who were recognised on the day. The Clem Kentish Community Service Award, Vicky Kerfoot. Community Citizen of the Year, Julie Richards. Senior Community Citizen of the Year, Julie Curtis. Youth Community Citizen of the Year, Reese Jarrett. Active Citizenship Award Group Category, SJ Food and Farm Alliance. And a Certificate of Appreciation to the Graceford Volunteer Group. It was wonderful to see our community embrace the Shire's New Look Australia Day celebrations later in the afternoon with a free community cricket match, live band and food trucks. In the next fortnight, the Shire's road reseal program will commence with 10 roads across Oakford, Serpentine, Jarrahdale and Mundijong to be upgraded as part of the 2023 program. Works will commence on Hardy Road in Serpentine over the first week in March. Main Roads WA has also commenced roadworks to construct roundabouts at the Thomas Road intersections with Nicholson Road and Cargottage Road, Oakford, with the work scheduled to continue throughout all of 2023. These intersection upgrades will help improve the safety for all road users, so it is pleasing to see these upgrade works underway. Continuing our journey to engage more with our community, a major review of the Shire's strategic community plan will be carried out over the coming months. This review will ensure the goals, strategies and objectives captured in the plan are relevant and reflect the future needs and priorities of the community. Further information about how our community can be involved will be provided in the coming weeks. The Shire has commenced planning for the Byford Skate Park Stage 2 upgrade project, which is proposed to include an extension to the skating surface, new skatable elements, seating, lighting and improvements to the Byford Skate Park precinct. The project is being funded by the state government through the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries. We look forward to seeing the feedback from younger people in our community who will help shape the look and feel of these upgrades for the Byford Skate Park. Chief Executive Officer Mr Paul Martin and I had our regular meeting with our local member for Darling Range, Hugh Jones, last week. These meetings provide an opportunity for us to collaborate on important issues around our community. Last week, we discussed the SJ Recreation Centre upgrades, installation of a new toilet block at Kitty's Gorge Trailhead, the future Byford Health Hub and the Keenan Park Sporting Precinct. Finally, this month saw the recommencement of our working groups and advisory group meetings for 2023, with meetings held for Equine Advisory, Access and Inclusion Advisory and the Keenan Park Stakeholders Reference Group. These advisory and reference groups have representation from across our community, and I would like to thank those who volunteer their time to contribute to these important areas in our community. As always, my full calendar can be viewed on the pages below. Item number 6 is declaration of councillors and officers' interest, which there is a number of this evening. Chief Executive Officer Mr Paul Martin declared a financial interest in item 8.1, CEO Employment Committee meeting held on the 6th of February 2023. The nature of the interest is the CEO Employment Committee deals with the matters affecting his employment. The extent of the interest is I am the CEO. Mr Martin will leave the chambers while this item is discussed. Councillor Dave Atwell declared a financial interest in item 9.3, notice of motion, revocation OCM 2691122, proposed radio, TV and communications installation, telecommunications tower and associated infrastructure, lot 116, 245 Keenan Street, Whitby. The nature of the interest is financial. The extent of the interest is completing fire breaks for owner of the property where tower is proposed. Councillor Atwell will leave the chambers while this item is discussed. Councillor Shane Mack declared an impartiality interest in item 10.1.1, proposed use not listed, brewery, restaurant and associated works, consideration of additional information following deferral by Development Assessment Panel, lot 201, 1248 Carnut Road, Serpentine. The nature of the interest is currently work on a casual basis for a local tavern. The extent of the interest is limited as I do not intend to continue this employment after March 1st, 2023. Councillor Dave Atwell declared a financial interest in item 10.1.5, proposed auxiliary dwelling, lot 3, 307 Shanley Road, Mardella. The nature of the interest is financial. The extent of the interest is I have done fire breaks for the Whiskey family. Councillor Atwell will leave the chamber while this item is discussed. Shire President Councillor Michelle Rich declared a financial interest in item 10.2.2, award request for tender RFT 13/2022 Nettleton Road, widening and resurfacing. The nature of the interest is a tenderer is the client of my family business. The extent of the interest is fee for service. Councillor Rich will leave the chambers while the item is discussed. Councillor Robert Coles declared an impartiality interest in item 10.4.2, Anzac Day 2023. The nature of the interest is I am the immediate past president and current vice president. The extent of the interest is impartiality interest. Item 7, confirmation of minutes of previous council meetings. Item 7.1 is the ordinary council meeting held on the 12th of December 2022. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Stratton. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strange. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Councillor Coles?
Sorry, Madam President, I'm not opposed to the minutes per se, but it appears that there may have been some inaccuracies. I wonder if that could be looked at.
Councillor Coles, do you have any more detail?
I think there is a councillor who would like to make a comment about what was raised tonight by a member of the gallery. I think this may be an opportune moment for that to occur.
So does this have anything to do with the ordinary council meeting minutes held on the 12th of December 2022?
I thought it was, but it might have been the special council meeting.
Councillor Coles, do you have an objection to the ordinary council meeting minutes held on the 12th of December 2022?
Just give me a sec. No, I don't. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Is there anybody opposed to these minutes, to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 7.2, special council meeting held on the 30th of January 2023. Can I please have a mover for these minutes?
Madam President, I have a question, concern, query. I think this is what Councillor Coles was referring to, this special council meeting. As we do have recordings, there was substantial debate, and I believe in that debate there was something that was miscommunicated that contributed to the outcome. On that debate, personally, I had my own understanding, but I would like the opportunity to give the opportunity to the councillor to clarify information they communicated in that debate, if that's possible.
Councillor Strawtons, which councillor are you referring to?
Councillor Duggan.
Madam President, I'm happy to put forward a personal explanation under Standing Orders 1017, if allowed, please.
I have had email communication with Councillor Duggan since Friday afternoon. Councillor Duggan has requested a personal explanation to be given in regards to the minutes from this meeting. She has stated in her original email that she was contacted by Councillor Strawtons, who made her aware of an error that she made in the debate at the recent SCM. I have spent quite a considerable time and gained and asked and sought advice in regards to the request under 10.17 of the standing orders. And I have emailed Councillor Duggan this afternoon and informed her that the request that she has made does not fit with what 10.17 of the standing orders is. 10.17 of the standing orders is to allow a member of council or committee to make a personal explanation where part of their speech debate has been misunderstood by other council or committee members. My understanding from the information that has been supplied is that no misunderstanding took place, but rather incorrect information was used as part of the speech or debate. As such, given that it does not fit within the standing orders for item 10.17, I cannot give permission for a personal explanation to be made.
Madam President, with that in mind, can I please follow Standing Orders 1019, where a procedural motion of dissent with the ruling is moved, please, before any other business?
Sorry, councillor Duggan, can I just ask what section 1019?
It's section 1019, thanks.
So councillor Duggan, are you moving a motion of dissent?
Yes, please.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Do you have a seconder for a motion of dissent? Thank you, councillor Mack. All those in favour of the
Madam
motion?
President, the mover of the motion gets an opportunity of 5 minutes to speak to the motion. There's no more debate.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Duggan, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Madam President. I was made aware that I made a mistake in my debate, and I think in true transparency, it's right that all councillors should be given the right to correct their errors, and this is the appropriate opportunity to do that, simply because it is the first meeting that involves our public since that time. Actually, second meeting. My apologies. So when I make mistakes, I like to own them, and I like to correct them. So this is the hope that I can have that opportunity to correct what was said. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. All those in favour of the motion of dissent? All those against? 2, 3, 4. Motion is carried 5-4. Councillor Duggan, can you please? Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded on the dissent motion? Thank you, Minute Secretary. Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Madam President. On the 30th of January at the SCM to determine the Council's recommendation to the Local Government Advisory Board regarding the preferred warden representation option, I inadvertently made a mistake and confused a number of electors with a number of residents in our Shire. The number of electors as at 30th September 2022 as stated in the discussion paper was 21,275. The estimated number of residents as per the SJ Shire website is 36,403. That means the ratio I offered in my debate were incorrect. It was an honest mistake, but one I feel I must apologise for. I'm human, I made a mistake and now wish to correct it. 36,403 residents is still less than half of the maximum resident number in the band to which the SJ Shire is assigned, that being 5,000 to 75,000 residents. Therefore, my argument was
point of order under 9.9 of the standing orders, reopening discussion on decisions. No matter of council or a committee is to reopen discussion on any decision of a council or committee, except for the purpose of moving that the decision be revoked or changed. Councillor Duggan, you cannot go into debate of what the item was on the night. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam President. That was my sentence lining up to giving the adjusted ratios. So if I may continue.
Councillor Duggan, a point of order has been called.
The corrected ratios for comparison are with 8
Councillor Duggan, a point of order has been called. You may not go into debate. You may not discuss a decision that has already been made.
Thank you, Madam President. I have noted that. And as I said, I was actually leading directly into my corrected ratios now. The corrected ratios for comparison are with 8 councillors, 1.
Councillor Duggan, a decision has been made on this item. You have been able to state that you have made a mistake. You cannot enter into any further commentary or debate on this item as a decision has already been made on this council decision.
With due respect, Madam President, I'm not asking to further debate. I'm actually asking just to give the ratios as they are corrected.
You are speaking on a item that has already got a council decision made on it. You do not have the opportunity to put forward further information.
as it's a correction of previous information, I would think it's relevant. However, I shall abide by the Madam President's ruling. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have a mover for the minutes from the special council meeting held on the 30th of January 2023? Thank you, Councillor Strange. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 7.3, special council meeting held on the 6th of February 2023. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Straughtons. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8 is receipt of minutes, all reports and consideration of adoption of recommendations from committee meetings held since the previous council meeting. Item 8.1 is the CEO Employment Committee meeting held on the 6th of February 2023.
Madam President, I've declared a financial interest in this matter, so I'll leave the room and I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services to come assume the chair, please.
Thank you. Item 8.1 is CEO Employment Committee meeting held on the 6th of February 2023. Can I please have a mover for the motion before us? Thank you, Councillor Byers. Councillor Coles, are you happy to second?
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Can we please have the CEO return to the chamber? Mr. Martin, the officer's recommendation for the CEO Employment Committee meeting held on the 6th of February 2023 was carried unanimously. Item 8.2 is the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee meeting held on the 13th of February 2023. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Strange. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Straughtons. Is there anybody opposed to these minutes? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9, motions of which notice has been given. 9.1 is notice of motion correspondence sent to the Minister for Local Government regarding electoral reform advocacy. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9.2, notice of motion, Tonkin Highway Extension Project. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strange. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. 9.3 is notice of motion, revocation OCM 269-1123, proposed radio, TV and communication installation, telecommunications tower and associated infrastructure, lot 116 245 Kiernan Street, Whitby. I propose to move a deferment of this item, given the information that has been presented to council and some of the allegations made in the statement as presented during statement time. Can I please have a seconder for a deferment of this item? Thank you, councillor Strange.
Madam
anybody-
President, can I put forward another procedural motion of dissent, please?
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Do we have a seconder for a motion, for the motion of dissent?
Madam President, I'm just interested in if Councillor Duggan could explain the no intention of dissent. There is a live motion on the book that the motion is deferred. So, in fact, I'd be interested to know what Councillor Duggan's point of dissent is. The Councillor Rich has moved a motion, seconded by Councillor Strange. There's no actual ruling on that.
Okay, yeah, my
It's
apologies.
just a live motion the council would need to
Yep,
debate.
my apologies.
Thank you, Mr Martin. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Thank you, councillor Duggan. In opening the debate to actually defer this item, there has been further information supplied that council has not had time to investigate or gain knowledge of in this evening's statement time as presented by a resident in the Whitby area. I think council needs to be fully aware and fully briefed on all information, and it would be the job of council to actually make sure that we have all information available to us in making a decision. So my view is that this item needs to be deferred until we can ask more questions of the officers and gain further information from the telco that has proposed to put this tower in place. Thank you. Councillor Strange, would
Sorry,
you like?
Madam President, I ask a question. Are you in a position to advise councillors what that new information is?
There is information that has been put forward in the statement by Mr Healy this evening that I have not seen or heard before, and there are certain allegations that have been put forward as part of that statement, which I think council needs to actually be able to ask questions on, and I think it'd be very prudent of council to do that and not to actually pass something without having a full disclosure of all information involved in the process.
Madam President, do you agree that most of those things that were raised by Mr Healy were actually raised in this place last Monday at the question and answer meeting?
No, I don't, councillor Coles.
Okay, thanks, Madam President.
Councillor Strange, would you like to speak or reserve?
Just like to agree with your comments, Madam President, and highlight that we've been called out for not following required process. Without having that clarified, I would feel very uncomfortable dealing with the application.
Thank you, councillor Strange. Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Madam President. We already have the officers' information. They put in an officer's recommendation to the August meeting when this was November, the 21st of November OCM. So we already know the officers' point of view on this agenda item. And if we were to have all information placed before us prior to the meeting, we wouldn't be debating. The whole idea is that we all bring the information to the table that we've learned. We debate the benefits and we debate where its downfalls are in front of the public, which is where we should be having our debate for transparency. So for that reason, I feel that we have sufficient information as this has come up on the 21st of November. It was given an alternate recommendation, and I think that it's important that for everybody involved that we debate the information as it is presented to us and we move forward and make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? As I've already stated in my opening debate, I have concerns with the information as raised by Mr Healy in his statement this evening, and I think it is prudent that council actually defers this item and asks questions in consideration of the information raised. One of those points being that people sold their house off market because of inside information. That allegation I consider to be quite a serious allegation, And I think that council has a duty to actually have the appropriate time and questions that we can ask and get to the bottom of this information. There is quite a few other points that Mr. Healy has raised through his statement that I think where he has stated that he has not had any communication, he has not been given the opportunity to put forward his view or his opinion, and I think that that is wrong, and he should be given the full opportunity to do that. So in that case, I will take this item to the vote for the deferral of this item.
Sorry, Madam President, can I ask a question? If this motion was successful as a deferred motion, what does that mean in terms of the revocation motion and the poor ratepayer in terms of him not knowing what's going on? What's the effect, I guess, of the deferral motion?
Matt, thank you for the question. Madam President, my comment would be that if the council resolved to defer it, we would schedule it for a future council meeting to come back for the council to reconsider it after looking into the information that has been raised.
So if I can, through the chair, so Mr. CEO, does that mean that no work will be done on this tower? Does it mean that the ratepayer has confidence that nothing's going to happen until the next council meeting?
Well, we would advise the applicant who has a legal approval in place of the council's decision to defer, and that's as much as we could do at this point in time.
So I guess, and this is a very, sorry, through the chair, a very important point, because currently a decision was made by council on the 21st of November to approve this, albeit not in the officer's recommendation, and that's by the by. So that's been passed by council. We now have a motion that's been put forward for this to be revoked, but tonight nothing has happened with that motion. So I'm not a lawyer, but I would argue that potentially the proponent can still go ahead and do what was passed in November, because this motion tonight, nothing's happened with it. Or is that not the case? And I think we need to be unequivocal on that, because we've got a ratepayer here who you could tell in his voice tonight is quite emotional about what's happening. And the least we can do as council is give this ratepayer some certainty.
I'm not exactly sure what your question is, to be entirely honest. The question is there, if council defers it, then it hasn't considered the revocation.
Thank you. So you've answered, sorry, through the chair. Thank you. So you've answered my question then. So the motion that was passed on the 21st of November 2022 has been passed. The revocation motion hasn't been heard. So what's stopping the proponent to start work on that new location that was passed by council on the 21st of November when the motion has been passed, and tonight nothing has happened? How is that giving some consistency or some certainty to the ratepayer?
Councillor Coles, would you like to add a point to the deferral to ask the CEO to write to the proponent and request them not to undertake any further works until this item has been sorted?
Well, sorry, if I can ask another question, I think we need to get some legal advice on this. I would be very concerned, and as I said, I'm not a lawyer, but we've still got a motion that was passed by council in November. We haven't done anything with it tonight. We've deferred it. So what is stopping Telstra commencing work tomorrow?
Well, I wouldn't think there's anything stopping council defers to reconsideration of the revocation. I might refer to the Director of Corporate Services if you've got anything to add to it. But
Thank you, Mr. CEO. 14.1 talks about implementations of decisions, and if a notice of revocation has been received after the closure of a meeting with the correct number of signatures, and I'll read out what 14.1b. If a notice of motion to revoke or change a decision of council or committee is received after the closure of the meeting at which the decision was made, implementation of the decision is not to be withheld unless the notice of motion has the support in writing of the number of members required to support the motion under Regulation 10 of the regulations. So that would suggest that we are, until the notice of motion, the revocation motion has been dealt with, would be stopped.
Thank you, Director.
Sorry, Madam President, can I just put that on the record then? So it's unequivocal that this will stop the proponent commencing any works on the tower?
The information that the director has just read out from the standing orders, the way that our revocation motions work is that there should not be any further work until the revocation motion has been dealt with. If it is deferred tonight, it has not been dealt with. And I feel that the information that has been provided is quite serious and needs to actually be answered. So, Councillor, I don't think the officers can give you any more clarification than what they already have. I have closed the debate. We have a motion to defer this item seeking further information on information that has been raised during public statement time this evening. All those in favour of the motion to defer? All those against? 2, 3, 5. Motion is lost 3-5. Can we please have the votes recorded? Minute Secretary.
Madam President, I'd like to move the motion that was put forward originally, please.
Thank you, Councillor Stratton.
Madam President, can I just clarify the revocation, if that's what Councillor Stratton is moving, should be done in two parts. Part one as a separate motion and then part two. Are you happy just to move part one, Councillor Stratton?
Yes, I am, CEO.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stratton. Can I have a seconder for part one, please? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is anybody opposed to this motion?
Sorry, Madam President, I'm not opposed per se, but I'm just wondering whether the mover and the seconder would agree that we amend it so that we defer it and then it comes back to council. And I'm trying to think of the wording to basically allay your concerns, because on reflection, Madam President, you have made a very pertinent point. So what I would say is that we defer it if the mover and seconder are happy with this course of action. And then we put something in there about it coming back to council for a further reconsideration, the second part, if that makes sense.
Madam President, could I make a suggestion, if that was the will of council, that the council deals with part one in its entirety as a separate matter, which has been moved and seconded. That would then revoke the decision of the November meeting and clear the slate, so to speak. If the council then wanted to move a motion to defer the reconsideration of part two, which was essentially the approval it gave at that time, that would be an appropriate time to do so. We would then be able to tell the applicant that the council has revoked the decision in November, but deferred it for further information if that's what council wanted to do. Because essentially, once the council revokes the decision, any options available to council to consider as it wishes.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please?
Councillor Duggan.
Have we got any indication from Telstra if we were to defer this second part so they know where they're putting the monopole? Have we got any information from them as to how they would feel about that decision?
Well, we haven't approached them about that because we're only approaching them about the matter that was there. But I would suggest that's actually probably a question and point of debate for part two of the motion. The first point is part one, whether the council wants to revoke its decision or not, and then it's open to whatever option is available after that.
Madam President, question if I may.
Councillor Mack.
Thank you. Just hearing your concerns before that there were some serious allegations levelled before and that you wanted to defer this for an investigation, would the approval of part two as it's written actually prohibit an investigation into that allegation in the first place?
Councillor Mack, given the seriousness of the allegations and the information put forward, why would council want to approve the building of the monopole in any location given the information provided by the resident? Councillor Coles, do you have a question?
Sorry, Madam President, I was wondering if you actually answered the question, because I don't believe you did. You never answer a question with a question, and the officer, sorry, the councillor has asked a question. So I think normally it's yes or no proposition, not.
Councillor
another
Coles,
question.
I'd actually answer the question to you in exactly the same way. The resident has raised serious concerns this evening as part of his statement that he has made. Given the seriousness of those concerns and allegations that have been made, why would council approve the development of this pole in any location at this point in time until it had those questions answered?
I'll take that as a rhetorical question. Thanks, Madam President.
Can I put a point of clarification, Madam President? The only motion that council is considering is part one, which is whether the matter be revoked or not. So just to make that very, very clear.
Is there any councillor opposed to part one of the motion that we have before us? Motion is carried unanimously. Part two of the motion that we have before us, councillor Coles, do you want to move a deferment of part two?
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, councillor Coles.
I'd probably seek some advice on that, Madam President, because in what is some rather ironic foreshadowing, 9.9% prevents the reopening of discussion of a previous decision. Council has actually made a decision on whether to defer this item not 10 minutes ago. So I'd get some advice from the CEO on whether we can actually defer it, considering council just made a decision not to defer it.
Well, I might ask for some assistance from the Director of Corporate Services, but my initial response would be that the council, when it did the initial deferment, was deferring the revocation as well as that approval. This is now the slate. The council has now revoked its decision, and so the slate is clean essentially. And so there could be a potential for a deferment of the applicant. You're now considering the application almost fresh again, so it could be argued it's separate and different to the original deferment.
CEO, if I could, Gary. Sorry, okay.
Might be illusory just to refer to Director of Development Services because we have a live development application that's no longer being dealt with. Now, I understand that there may be a time frame where it becomes a deemed refusal if we don't deal with it in a particular time frame. So we could just get that cleared up.
Direct.
Sorry, can I hear that question again? It's a bit hard to hear. Sorry, my apologies.
The Director of Corporate Services has asked, given the fact that this planning application has now been rescinded and the application is no longer in play, is there a time process of where this application could hit the point of being a deemed refusal?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Madam President. Through so approvals made during the state of emergency, and the state of emergency through COVID ceased early December. There's a 4-year substantial commencement timeframe. So ultimately, this was approved in November 2022. So it's 4 years from approval before that approval lapses from a purely planning perspective.
Even with the planning approval now being revoked?
That's purely from a planning perspective. There wasn't an approval granted. It was made during the state of emergency, which ultimately gives approvals 4 years validity before it expires.
Thank you.
Madam President, I won't make it as a statement. I'll phrase it so it's a question, so it's permissible. But I'd ask about page 16, which entertains various situations, and dot point 1 explicitly states that should council support part 1 of the motion, not replace the resolution with a resolution of approving application, etc., the applicant may choose to accept a deemed refusal by virtue of council failing to make a decision on the outstanding application within the required 90-day assessment period. So I'd ask if that advice is current and accurate.
Correct, Madam President. That would be at the applicant's request, applicant's call.
Thank you, Councillor Bias, for your question. We have a mover for a deferral of part 2. Do I have a seconder for that deferral?
Madam President, would it be helpful if there was some extra wording added to what the deferring is and what the councillor expects to occur with the deferral occurring, please?
Yeah, and from the outset, sorry, through the president, Mr. CEO, thank you. I think the intent is quite clear. And I guess this is where we as councillors refer to or rely on the advice of the experts in the room. So I think sorry, CEO, what I was saying is where we as councillors refer on advice and some assistance from the staff. Certainly my initial proposition was to defer it and then have it come back. On advice of the staff, it's now been deferred. Now we're sort of at no man's land. So any advice would be appropriate and would be certainly welcome. So basically the Shire President's raised some concerns, and I think they speak for themselves. So what we'd need to do is come back and investigate that, talk to that, workshop it or whatever. At the end of the day, I think the motion's now been passed. It's revoked, which is a good thing. So I'm in your hands.
Madam President, if I could suggest that council defer consideration of the development application to the March meeting, pending investigation into issues raised by neighbouring residents.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Appreciate it.
Are you happy with that wording, councillor Coles? I'm happy to second that motion to defer. Is there any councillor opposed to this motion? Sorry.
I think, Minute Secretary, it's pending investigation into issues raised
Yes.
by neighbouring residents. Is that fair? The mover and seconder, is that? Seconded by councillor Rich.
Yes. So any councillors opposed to this motion? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Councillor Coles, would you like to open debate, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sort of nonchalant, which I shouldn't say, but I am in relation to this, which is never good when you want to speak for a motion. To be quite simple, the intent has been achieved. Certainly, we've now given some confidence and some assurance to the resident who certainly was never, ever consulted, which I find is absolutely deplorable when this came to council. And it's fortunate that the votes were recorded at that time. In relation to this, there has been some comments made tonight, which I was already aware of, except for the point about someone having inside information. I certainly was not aware of that. But in any event, if that can come back to council for us to discuss it, for us to do an investigation, and us, that's obviously the Shire, not the councillors, to do an investigation so we can improve our processes. And perhaps there's some people that acted inappropriately, and that needs to be called out. So I'd certainly support this motion.
Thank you, councillor Coles. I'm happy to reserve. Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Madam President. I'm certainly not against the investigation into these allegations, as stated by all councillors that have spoken so far. These are quite serious allegations. However, I still fail to see why the investigation can't be run concurrently with the development. I do know that the proponents, Telstra and Mr. and Mrs. Ritchie, have shown grace by allowing us this time to look at a revocation. And we already know the officers' recommendations as it was presented to us back in November. So, like I said, it has not been explained to me to this time why we can't make a decision this evening and run with a concurrent development while we do the investigation, which I see as being a completely separate entity. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there any other councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Coles, would you like to close, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The other part of this is if we do defer it, and I have had the opportunity to go back to the minutes of November last year, there were actually other sites that were put forward in the document. So perhaps part of the investigation may actually be able to look at other sites and not actually put it on Kiernan Street. Because I think my understanding is that if the tower is not on that location at all, that would be a win-win and a better result for poor old Mr. and Mrs. Healy. So that could actually be another outcome, and then potentially when it comes back to council, there could be another location that's identified and not the Kiernan one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. All those in favour of the motion before us? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 2. Motion is carried 6-2.
We have the votes recorded, please, Madam President.
Minute Secretary, can we have the votes recorded, please? Councillor Atwell, part 1 of the motion was carried 9-0. Part 8-0, sorry. Part 2 of the motion to defer the item was carried 6-2. Item 9.4, notice of motion, recreation centre dance floor. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Strawtons. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10 is Chief Executive Officer reports. 10.1 is Development Services reports. 10.1.1 is proposed use not listed, brewery, restaurant and associated works. Consideration of additional information following deferral by the Development Assessment Panel, lot 201 1248 Carnup Road, Serpentine.
Madam President, I have an alternate motion I'd like to propose. I'd like to move.
Thank you, Councillor Strawtons.
Councillor Strawtons, can I suggest for the benefit of the gallery, you advise the changes, difference, please?
Thank you. So, yes, the differences that I'm proposing is in near the top one number and paragraph A, as highlighted and distributed earlier to councillors. On the second line, there is the addition with all quantities adjusted down to maximum 500,000 litres transported off-site, plus an additional 500,000 litres for on-site sales. And then going over to the second page, in D.2, there is a change that hasn't been earlier communicated, and that is to change the word minimum to maximum when it comes to the car parking bays. And then in point 3, there is an addition to a minimum. So the whole sentence would read, include a suitable number of car parking spaces dedicated to people with disability designed to a minimum in accordance with the relevant Australian New Zealand standard. And then on the third page, under M, section 7, the whole sentence reads, amend table 7 to reflect actual total volume of wastewaters generated by the brewery for year 1 being equivalent waste produced by 1,200,000 litres of manufactured product and must legally manage all waste. And they are the changes complete.
Madam President, I don't think the minute secretary has captured the changes that councillor Stroughton's wanted in relation to D, being include a maximum of 251 car parking bays.
Yeah, thank you, councillor Stroughton.
Is that change the word minimum to maximum in point
2.
D2? Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. You have the alternate motion for 10.1.1 from councillor Stroughton's before you. He has moved this motion. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Thank you, councillor D'Agostino. Councillor Stroughton, would you like to open debate, please?
Sorry, Madam President, if I may, can I ask a question of the proponents who are in the gallery? And I should have asked when they made their deputation, but in relation to the 500,000 litres, can I ask what that actually means to the proponent?
Can I please ask of Ms Dunbar, as the alternate motion has been put on the screen, what does the change to a maximum of 500,000 litres transported off-site plus an additional 500,000 litres for on-site sales mean for the development? What it is stating is the development is to be carried out in compliance with plans and documentation listed below, with all quantities adjusted down to maximum 500,000 litres transported off-site, plus an additional 500,000 litres for on-site sales, and endorsed with the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale stamp, except where amended by other conditions of this consent. What the councillor is asking is what those quantities down to what the numbers down to those quantities means for the development. Excuse me, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes for councillors to find the information that they request, given that this alternate motion came through to us today. Councillors have not had the opportunity to actually ask questions on it, so we will adjourn for 15 minutes. So the proponent can actually speak with the Acting Director of Development Services, and then council, once we return to the meeting, can actually ask questions and gain some answers through the Acting Director. Thank you, councillors. We will resume back at 9:03 p.m.
Yes. Yeah. I think talk about